So to get started, today's agenda, basically we'll give a quick overview of what this change is, a few reasons why it came about, and then what are the options moving forward for you. And then talk a little bit about Microsoft Advisory Services and how that can help you to make the best decision within your business. So as of July 1st, 2016, Microsoft is moving the minimum requirement for an enterprise agreement from 250 qualified devices or users to 500 for commercial customers. So what they're seeing in the business is a lot of the EAs in this segment, so under 500 seats, really aren't what was the traditional EA. So, enterprise products across all users and devices, that it really based on moving forward with cloud subscriptions. It's either a full Office 365 type of EA or it's a hybrid model, and really doesn't allow for the flexibility within the EA agreement that some of these other programs may be able to offer. So with this new minimum commitment, it impacts the traditional EA agreement, so Office Pro Plus, Enterprise Desktop, Enterprise Cal, Core Cal, and the Windows OS, as well as the Enterprise Subscription Agreement. It does exclude government and then the server and cloud enrollments of an EA. With those options, you have either to go with an MPSA, which we'll discuss in a little bit more detail moving forward, or a CSP, a combination of the both, which we'll also discuss, or you have the option to renew any EA that's current when this deadline comes up of July 2016 for another enrollment period, so another 3-year EA period. There are a few geographies that if you have any enrollments in that have not been impacted by this change because an MPSA may not be in place. So in those geographies, they will retain the minimum of the 250 users or devices. China, India, also other locations that have outside of the US that have an enterprise enrollment template, their contractual minimum will be raised to the 500 seats. So it's a fairly straightforward change. It's been announced now and then will be out on Microsoft's blogs and information beginning in February. So it gives you a little bit of time to think about really what is best for your business moving forward with the available options. And then again, as I mentioned, the ability to re-enroll in another 36 months if you need time to adapt to that change. With that, one of the preferred options by Microsoft is the Microsoft Products and Services Agreement, so the MPSA. As a refresher to what that is, it's more of a transactional type of purchasing than the EA agreement. So right now it has the ability to offer both online subscriptions as well as on-premise products. It is an evergreen agreement that doesn't expire. It's just a rolling 36 months for any SA purchases. It really does have an improved agreement structure. So if you have been through an enterprise agreement signing and going through the T's and E's of that the Microsoft Products and Services Agreement is an 8-page document that can be transacted very quickly and go from signing the agreement to actually using the products within hours. It also is developing over time to continue to be more value to customers, that there's introductions of multi-year online services SKUs. So if you know you have a workload and want to lock in that pricing, for example, an Office 365 SKU, you have the ability to do that, and regardless of any changes in the pricing over the course of that period, you won't see any price increase during your agreement. It also has improved some of the systems and tools. So if you're used to managing your agreement, your SA benefits, that sort of thing via the VLSC, that has now been revised for the MPSA and is called the Business Center. It makes activation of those SA benefits a lot easier to manage, that sort of thing. In addition, I think it's important to note that the Select Plus agreement, so if that has been your companion agreement to an EA or maybe your main agreement historically, that is also being retired as of July 1st. So you'll no longer be able to make additional purchases on that post July 1st till your next anniversary. So it really is timely to look at these additional options for purchasing moving forward, and especially for that under 500 subset, as in the near future, that's no longer going to be an option. Again, to talk a little bit more about the MPSA, if it's not something that you're using as a companion agreement to your EA today, it takes no points to enter. So if you have a renewal coming up and choose not to take that additional 3-year offer for the EA and want to make a change that fits your business better today, you can do that with no purchase. So you just have over the course of the next year to reach 500 points within any pool to keep that open. All purchases within the agreement are aggregated for the best purchasing level within the entire agreement. You really are able to move this agreement to be a little bit more flexible to your business. So if you have different purchasing accounts, and that can be set up by location, business center, affiliate, for any bill backs that you may want to do or internal accounting, that's all very, very easily done within the MPSA. And then all of those points within your purchasing accounts are then aggregated for the best pricing overall. It does have self-provisioning for online services via the Business Center, so they're up and available within hours of you setting those up. And it really makes for more easily moving to the cloud, if that's your option, or a hybrid option. That with the MPSA, you can purchase standalone licensing, which isn't currently allowed on the EA agreement. So you're not required to add software assurance. If you do choose to add software assurance to your agreement or to your purchases, you can pay for that all up front, or you can annualize that over the next 3 years. And then there, as I mentioned before, MPSA is constantly being updated by Microsoft to make it much more user-friendly for that 500 seat below environment. In July, we saw Visual Studio with MSDN being added with the availability to purchase that on the MPSA. Currently, Microsoft Azure has been added, and it's in a pay-as-you-go model. So that's a little bit different than what you might have seen traditionally, purchasing it on an enterprise agreement or on a server and cloud enrollment, where currently you're making that monetary commit. So the forecasting of what you think you're going to use over the course of a year. If in fact you don't use it over that year, those funds are lost and they start over the next year. There's some benefit to that. People prefer maybe for budgetary purposes to have that budgeted out and don't have to think about it again, and it hits their budgets and it's done. With that in mind, that monetary commit is actually coming to the MPSA in the near future. So if you do prefer that option via the agreement you're purchasing it today, you will have that moving forward with the MPSA. But today, it is also an option that you can purchase it as pay-as-you-go. So in terms of budgetary use, that really could be a benefit as well, that you're paying for what you use in arrears. So That is the option today. The Enterprise Cloud Suite has been included as another online subscription offering from Microsoft in September. And as I mentioned before, the multi-year subscriptions, so that price lock on 1, 2, or 3-year subscriptions, and regardless of what the market does with the pricing, your pricing is locked in. As of May, the MPSA will also have monthly locked-in pricing. So as of right now, on both the Enterprise Agreement and the MPSA Agreement, your minimum term for a subscription product, for example, E3, you're paying for it annually. At your year anniversary, you're able to lower the count, make changes, but that's the minimum right now. So what will be coming is 1 to 11 month subscriptions. So if your business has any type of seasonal worker or additional people in retail over the holidays, something like that, then you're able to ramp up for just those months that you need it, and then not be paying for additional months that you don't. So I think that's a great benefit that's coming with the MPSA. In addition to that, currently there are some online subscription options within the Enterprise Agreement that haven't been traditionally on the MPSA, but they are coming in the very near term. So step-ups that incremental pricing, if you're coming from a lower subscription, say in E1, and would like to move to the new E5, those will be offered in the very near future on the MPSA. So with that, if there aren't any questions, I think I've ran through the change in general, and the MPSA is an additional offer. If you choose not to renew for the additional 36 months, I will pass it over to Charlie Weber to talk about the CSP as an option.
Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. It's first and foremost, so this is a large change. And first, to introduce myself, my name is Charlie Weber. I'm a technology strategist here at SoftwareONE, and also lead the CSP business for SoftwareONE. So the new contract vehicle available from Microsoft as a whole. So as I was saying, the change around the enterprise agreement minimum commitment from 250 to 500 is, to put lightly, we see the writing on the wall. Microsoft realizes that enterprise agreements are great for particular types of customers that have understand their technology roadmap and understand that there are benefits inherent to an enterprise agreement as a contract as a whole. However, the raising of it means that Microsoft understands that the way our customers are consuming technology is changing. So they wanted to introduce more flexible options for licensing and vehicles for procuring licenses that better align to how customers actually want to use cloud products. So they introduced the CSP. CSP stands for the Cloud Solutions Program, and it is an ability to purchase Microsoft online products or cloud products with bundled support provided by SoftwareONE. So this offers the flexibility of having the product, but then conversely having confidence in the product because you have a managed service provider, SoftwareONE, as a vested partner in the administration of those cloud products. And let's go to next slide. There we go. All right, so why CSP is an option? First and foremost, as I mentioned, you do come with, it does come bundled with managed services provided by SoftwareONE. Number two is that the contract as a whole allows for the flexibility of monthly billing, or you have the option for upfront in a 1-year commitment. So in relationship to an MPSA or to an EA, those are longer term contracts, 3-year contracts. The CSP is designed specifically for a short-term commitment, 1-year minimum with the option of monthly billing. So if you look at the kind of the scope of how to procure a Microsoft license, you can go pay as you go, go as direct, and buy a license direct. This is the volume license version of pay as you go, and has with it the inherent benefits, volume license benefits, as well as managed service provided by SoftwareONE. Now, one thing of note here is that it's cloud only. So if you need an operating system or an on-premise server, you're not able to procure that via the CSP. So in quote unquote perfect universe, you have an MPSA and you have a CSP. CSP for your cloud products, MPSA if you want, for procuring any of your on-premise licenses, operating systems, CALs. They work in conjunction with each other. But it's just that at this moment, the CSP is simply for cloud products. So anything Office 365, Azure, and then as Microsoft develops more cloud technologies, those will be available in the CSP program as well. A major difference within the CSP is the ability to change midstream. So conversely, under an EA, if you say, I need 250 E3 licenses, you're locked in stone. E3 is what your enterprise-wide commitment is, and you're locked in stone under an E3 for the next 3 years. But the question always remains, what if you don't need an E3? What if through active usage, you determine some of my footprint only needs E1 or an E4 or an E5? So the ability to change, while possible under an enterprise agreement, takes a lot of legwork, takes exceptions, it takes work and effort in order to change that. The CSP, conversely, is meant and specifically designed for changing at any point in time throughout the contract. So a great example is if you decide I need 200 E3 licenses, and then 2 weeks later realize, you know what, I need E1s for 100 people. You can change that, and we'll bill according down to the day of install. So I'll charge you for 15 days worth of E3, and then that bill in arrears would be 15 days of E3 and 15 days of E1. So you have the ability to scale up, down, change your products as you see fit throughout the term of the agreement as a whole. So this really offers flexibility for a customer to decide if we need to move in a different direction. I can't be contractually hamstringed into leading one direction or the other. I need the flexibility to change. That's what the CSP is designed to do. Now, programmatically, the CSP is designed for smaller organizations, and I would say it's perfect for smaller organizations because the managed service is provided there. So with the managed service, as a delegated administrator, SoftwareONE will be hand in hand with you in the tenant, allowing us to, if you need us to delete a seat, add a seat, change users, this gives us delegated administrator rights into the tenant, and we can perform services for you. Another major thing is that this allows us the ability to escalate to Microsoft on your behalf. So if there is a service outage, God forbid, and Exchange goes down, we will troubleshoot that with you as a customer. And if we determine, you know what, this isn't a configuration problem, this isn't anything that that was occurring in the customer side, this is a product problem, SoftwareONE will escalate to Microsoft on your behalf. So that allows your IT staff to concentrate on what they need to do day in, day out, and not have to listen to hold music and wait for resolution steps. That's what we're here for. So that flexibility and support bundled with CSP is nice for the smaller organizations. However, this scales, there's no programmatic way or programmatically, there's no limitation to a customer if they want to buy CSP. You can be 200 seats, you can be 200,000 seats. CSP scales as you see fit. And then a major point is obviously as you add users, you don't have to add it at signing. So let's say you are 250 seats and you're testing 365 as a solution set, but you realize, all right, I could either deploy this over the course of a weekend. Well, then an EA makes sense because then you know your deployment timeline, you can deploy out the product, and you're paying for it the next day under an enterprise agreement or MPSA. Under the CSP, you have the ability to ramp users. There is no enterprise-wide commitment. If you need 10 users now and you want to deploy out department by department, affiliate by affiliate, user by user, and want to go 10 a week for the next 52 weeks, you have the ability to do so, and the bill will correspond to the day of install once again. So that's huge flexibility on the ramping. And I would argue the most important part to remember there is, what is your deployment timeline? Because that will help determine which vehicle fits your business strategy and IT strategy, adoption strategy, and will align the contract to make sense around it as a whole. Just noting one last point too, obviously, the EA is not going away. It's a great contract. I've worked in the IT business for long enough where the EA is a perfect fit for a lot of customers. MPSA is a perfect fit for a lot of customers. This is just simply another option. And keep in mind that this isn't a scare tactic. Microsoft's not taking the EA away. You do have the ability to renew for the next 3 years. So once again, EA is not going anywhere. It's just simply rules are changing. All right, so as I hinted to, but just here's another way to look at it, just reinforcing. A CSP is a license of Office 365 or Azure or any of the cloud solutions, plus managed service. Now from SoftwareONE, our managed service comes in 3 different flavors. Now each one of these flavors is according to hours of coverage, 8x5 or business day, 24x5, so business week, or 24x365, anytime, no matter what. Now, outside of hours of coverage, there is no difference in the support that you're receiving from SoftwareONE. Unlimited tickets, unlimited support, unlimited service incident requests, escalations to Microsoft, 100% unlimited. It's just simply, what hours of operation do you need the support around your business? So from conversations with customers, I think a great way to look at this is, when does your business run? Are you an accounting firm that only runs 8x5? Well, then you don't need weekend support. Or are you an organization that has 2 or 3 shifts throughout the day? Maybe that 24x5 or work week makes better sense. Or frankly, are you an organization that is forward thinking in technology and are going to be moving many workloads and adopting new technology, leading edge or even bleeding edge, where these workload migrations take place over the weekend, and that's when you need the support? Any one of these options is available to you. And then stress that this isn't locked in stone as well. If you decide that 8x5 is the right thing for you, but then 2 months down the line, you go, you know what? I get tickets at 2 a.m. I don't want to deal with tickets at 2 a.m. You can change your support model midstream, and I'll bill you to the day of change. So once again, flexibility is key. Flexibility is most important part within CSP as a whole. And then something I've mentioned before, but obviously it's an EA, MPSAs. Those are forecast models. You're forecasting your usage for a span of time, a long span of time. CSP is a usage model. I don't care how many seats you even have. You don't have to forecast those. You don't have to include those at signing. You can adopt as you see fit and adopt with confidence. Now, I'll tell you the truth, a perfect scenario isn't just, quote unquote, I'm going to adopt and move to 365. The real power of technology is understanding the why. Why are you moving to 365 or Azure? Why are you moving in, upgrading your data center or migrating to a new version of software? I would stress that, and one of my favorite lines from, and we'll speak to shortly, Ryan Weggs, is the reason you say no to adopting 365 or cloud is just as important as the reason that you say yes to adopt 365. So in a perfect universe, our software portfolio management approach will ask the pertinent question of why. So we offer a number of services that are prior to adoption, prior to transaction, and looking at what are the real reasons, business reasons, why your company wants to move to a new technology. Is 365 the best fit? Is Azure the best fit? We have advisory services specifically designed towards figuring out the why, understanding how your current infrastructure is set up, and if you'd made a transition to the cloud, what possible pitfalls could be within that migration and adoption timeline that you don't know what you don't know yet. So let's verify and validate the reasons why you're going to adopt new technology. Some of these are around just readiness. So you may not be ready to adopt 365 or Azure, but let's fill in the blanks and figure out what would it take to get ready to move and adopt towards cloud as a whole. Some of it could simply just be, how do you purchase it? So I have a lot of customers who contract optimization doesn't necessarily matter. They have the right contracts in place, but the way that they're procuring is still, I don't want to say archaic, but not very streamlined. Case in point, they make 200 purchases throughout the month. They realize that the chargeback model that they have internal, it makes sense. So they get a PO, they buy the software, and then they charge back according to the department that uses it. The problem is that creating a PO, Gartner states, is $200 per instance. So that's 200 transactions times $200 per transaction. So just to push paper from one side of the building to the other is an extraordinary amount of money. So what we offer is procurement services, and this is really about optimizing the procurement process as a whole, making sure that as you adopt, the contract is right for you, but the way you're going to procure software moving forward is also forward thinking. So note all those advisory services, these are prior to the transaction. But then obviously, okay, now we have the right contract in place, whether it's MPSA or CSP or EA, any contract vehicle possible. How are you going to actually transition? So SoftwareONE also offers transition services into the cloud as a whole. We'll do directory synchronization, email migrations, SharePoint migrations, and actually take your on-premise data and make sure that as you click the button and turn on 365, that solution is ready, validated, tested, works. Everyone's going to be happy and all the data is there no matter what. So in a perfect universe, you want to justify the why, plan accordingly, transition accordingly, and then have that long-term support when it comes to the 365 tenant and the products themselves. A couple of examples I wanted to include of the value of the cloud support and CSP program as a whole. I'm not going to read everything. Everybody can read this, but a couple of things that are massive for organizations around the billing. So if you charge, under different models, sometimes you'll just get one bill. Here's your organization's 365 spend, one bill. But how do you know if you have a chargeback model where that bill goes? Whose piece of the pie is this bill? With CSP, we have a billing engine behind the scene that we can get down to the product level, down to a subscription level, and tell you exactly, here are the users, here's their exact usage, here's their portion of the bill. The flexibility also to bill on a monthly basis. For some people, for some customers, they love it. Absolutely great. That means they don't have to budget for balloon payments, and they can decide conversely, I just need a monthly bill because I can transact it easily. I don't have to, quote unquote, go to my CEO for extra money or CFO. So billing flexibility is hugely important and available within the CSP model. True ups, true downs, as I mentioned, not only products, but users, counts. If you need to change anything, the CSP option is 100% flexible. Something that other contracts necessarily, it's hard to do, is change your enterprise commitment or change your product commitment as a whole. And then a couple examples of kind of more of the day in, day out support that's offered within CSP. How do you configure? How do you, as you're moving to the cloud, how do I configure my cell phones, my mobile devices? Or how do I configure my anti-malware and spam filtering? On-premise configurations don't exactly mimic into the cloud. So what is your strategy to make sure that as you migrate into the cloud, that's your configurations, your setup, everything from an end user experience is similar and won't cause the I don't know what to do tickets. That's the main point to avoid. So we're there as an advisory and consultation. Call it Big Brother over your shoulder, saying we've seen best practices to do X, Y, Z, or configure it X, Y, Z. That's where we are within the support model as a whole. Last one, and this is massive: reporting analytics. Microsoft doesn't offer reports on usage. The Microsoft as a whole obviously wants their customers to adopt technology and use that technology. People that use technology are happy customers. They're more likely to buy the next Microsoft product. Within reporting analytics offered via cloud support, we'll offer you on the tenant level how many licenses, usage over time, license by service, license by user, to give you tenant level, or I would put it as more or less C-level analytics of how is the adoption going? Are people using it? But then conversely, we'll also give reporting analytics onto the product. So at any point in time, if your CEO says, do we need E3? Does everybody need E3? You have a report that illustrates down to the product, down to last time login, last time failures, into are they using Skype? Are they using Pro Plus? Are they using Exchange Online? Are they actually using the products? And what frequency are they using the products? So at any point in time, daily, weekly, monthly reports, you configure the reporting. You tell us what you'd like to have the report built around, and we can illustrate at any point in time, or do you need E5? So that reporting analytics is based on trends and usage. So as you adopt cloud, you're adopting with confidence. All right. I'll pause right there. If you have any questions on the CSP platform as a whole, please, either raise hand or you can put it into the chat log. We can continue the conversation. And if not,
So
then
Charlie, we do have a couple of questions that came up here.
Okay.
One of them was basically saying then, I take that Office 365 with desktop apps are not available with CSP. And I just want to clarify if that question is regarding something like E3, which allows for
E1.
local deployment.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
E3 with local deployment of desktop apps is available on the CSP, which again, if you missed it, does stand for Cloud Solutions Provider, is what CSP stands for. So an E3 offering such as with the local deployment of desktop apps is available. If you wanted to buy, say, Microsoft Word standalone perpetual license, that is not available on CSP. The next question, Charlie, and I'll let you take this one, is what are the regional restrictions on the managed service for SoftwareONE? Is it available in the Caribbean?
Sure, absolutely. So our managed service is currently offered in 22 countries. We are in the Caribbean. We do have 8 different languages that are supported. This time, 2017, SoftwareONE's footprint is 185 countries. We have the ability to sell in. Our goal by 2018 is to have managed service, local managed service available in 122 countries. So as our customers' need arises, we will adapt to those needs. So yes, we are available, and it is available in the Caribbean.
Charlie, I also thought before we move on to Ryan
Excellent.
to point out if this is interest to you, and we've had some questions around the CSP. If that managed service is an interest to you, you could also add it to other agreements. So, for example, the MPSA, if you like that flexibility to have your on-premise products as well as your cloud subscriptions on one agreement, you could add it. You don't have to forfeit that, everything you've heard today about the managed services from SoftwareONE.
Right. That's a great point. CSP is just a buying vehicle. It's a contract. It's a way to procure license. But one of the caveats is it automatically includes the bundled support. But cloud support provided by SoftwareONE, you can apply to any contract. Our cloud support figure is contract agnostic. What it cares about is, do you have a 365 tenant? And I don't care where that tenant came from, whether it's an EA, MPSA, open value, open license, advisor license. If it's a pay-as-you-go license, we can still provide service and manage support onto that tenant. So do keep that in mind, is that it's flexible, our cloud support option, that it's not just CSP and tied into CSP, and it's available under any contract model.
Thanks, Charlie. We had another question come along regarding the reporting analytics.
Sure.
And asking if those are provided through Microsoft or SoftwareONE.
Those are provided 100% by SoftwareONE. Microsoft does not offer reporting analytics. And I see a question, will the customer have control to add or delete users in the CSP? Yes, 100%. We're only a delegated administrator. So something of note there is delegated administrator gives us permission to add or delete users on your behalf, but it doesn't give us access to your data. You're still the main admin. You still have main control and can do every single feature or function on the administration side. We're just a delegated administrator giving us access to, if you don't want to do that day in, day out mundane functions, you can offload those functions to us and say, hey, here's my Excel spreadsheet of my users. Please upload them and activate their licenses. Sure. Or if it's, hey, hey, SoftwareONE, Charlie.Weber will no longer be an employee as of Monday. Please delete that user. Sure, absolutely. So you have control, and it's part of the relationship is you tell us how much support that you're going to need day in, day out, what roles that you want us to do, or what roles that you need to have control over. It's flexible. But you will maintain 100% control, visibility, and access into everything 365.
Excellent. Thanks, Charlie. And for those of you that have been hearing my voice this far, my name is Ryan Weggs. I'm an inside sales manager here at SoftwareONE. And I want to address the next question here that Michael asked in the window, which was, what is the best way or best time to proceed prior to EA renewal to budget and review options? And Michael has their listed 6 to 9 months out. Michael, if I could reach through the WebEx and give you a high five, you couldn't have teed up my portion of this presentation any better. So I certainly appreciate that. And to answer your question, I think 6 to 9 months out is probably the minimum that you really want to look at this. And what we would suggest here at SoftwareONE is looking into something that we term our Microsoft Advisory Services Workshop. So you've heard Robin and Charlie very eloquently explain some of the alternate EA options that are out there. But also, to Charlie's point earlier, for some folks, the EA might work very well. What we want to do in that Microsoft Advisory Services Workshop is actually take all of those contract modeling pieces off the table to start. Let's get all the key decision makers within your business into the same room, and let's just talk about where we think we're going as a business for the next 3 to 6 years and where the software spend then takes us from there. So before, and I'm sure that many of you that are on this call probably had a very similar conversation, and I can say I've had it with my own customers, and it usually went something like this. How many desktops do you have? 250? Great, the EA is the way to go. And 3 to 6 years ago, I would say that was absolutely 100% true. Now the landscape has completely changed, and when you look at subscription products, cloud products, really there's a big difference there. So I think really with the Microsoft Advisory Workshop, what we're going to do is get everyone in the same room, probably a year ahead of your renewal. That 6 to 9 month time frame that you mentioned, Michael, I don't think is bad, but obviously if you can get a little bit further out, I think it makes it even better. We're not saying that the EA isn't the right answer. We're not saying that the MPSA is the right answer, or CSP or open, whatever it might be. But what we want to have happen is we want to have your business strategy dictate which licensing model you use, not the other way around. We don't want you to have to say, well, I'm on the EA, therefore I now have this for my team. And so those are really the biggest pieces when it comes to the Microsoft Advisory Workshop that we want to point out and really provide to our customers in a way that we can answer all these questions specific to each of you, because there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to any of the questions that we've asked here today. And what we want to be able to do is take the time to really deep dive and build out those scenarios. So when we talk about those workshops, it's usually a 1 to 3 day engagement, and again is going to be tied to your individual environment. So, Robin, you've performed a number of these workshops. So maybe if you want to jump in here and kind of describe what that process looks like, maybe some of the questions, and what are some of the key drivers that go through those engagements.
Fantastic. Yes, I am the licensing person that goes on site and discusses. As far as the MAS engagement, as Ryan mentioned, it really is a 1 to 3 day on site when we really go into your business. And that's what we look at as information gathering. So, before we ever go on site, we learn a lot about you, and it's really based on what are your business drivers? Where do you want to be? In terms of technology and the way that your business is moving. We talk through that with you and then map that, because it all comes back around to licensing and programs, right? And very, very important in the changes we're seeing today. Microsoft's adapting to the way their customers are doing business, on-premise licensing, hybrid environments, that sort of thing. So we do a lot of information gathering prior to that happening. Then we go on site, we talk about your business drivers, how you're using technology today, and then go home and back to our offices and really wrap that around what the licensing is available today and the programs available today to make recommendations that best fit your business. And so really to wrap it up, it's all driven by your business drivers. Where do you want to be in terms of technology within your business? And then map that to what's available in terms of licensing and programs.
Yeah, and I think Charlie brought up earlier, again, sort of what our mantra has been recently here, which is regardless of whether or not your motivation is to move into the cloud, we want to make sure that the reasons for you to go each way are equally as explicit. And one way to really do that through the MAS workshop is to take something. And I know one thing that I hear from a lot of my customers, and I see that there are a couple of familiar names here attending the webinar today, so thanks for joining in, is that we always want to get the biggest discounts. And that was really always the driver of the EA, was you get the deepest discount, you get the deepest discount. Well, Charlie talked about a concept earlier of ramping. Meaning that if I only have 50 users at a time that are going to Office 365 a month at a time, getting a 7 or 8% discount off of something I'm not using is not really a discount, right? I can tell you, my wife will say when I come home from the store and I say, well, honey, it was on sale. Well, that's great, it was on sale, but if we don't need it, we still wasted money. And I think that this is the same case here, where the traditional driver of a 7 or 8% discount based off of the agreement vehicle in which you're on is not really the driver anymore. Let's pay for what we're actually using. If we're going to go to a user-based, subscription-based model, I don't want to pay my cable bill if I'm not watching cable, right? We want to be able to cut the cord when it's appropriate, and really just consume exactly what it is and actually pay for exactly what it is that we're consuming. So I know we've covered a lot here, and we do have a few extra minutes, whether it be in the Q&A in the window, or if you want to raise your hand and we can unmute your line. If anyone has any specific questions, maybe even regarding their environment, if you're coming up on a renewal in the next few months, we're happy to take those questions. And just one last piece on the Microsoft advisory side, when it comes to these agreements, likely the answer will be a combination of something we've discussed. So it may be an EA with managed support. It may be an EA for the Windows OS and an MPSA for the Office 365 and CSP support or managed support on top of that. It may be a CSP and MPSA and an open value. There's really a multitude of different ways that you could do this. But really what we want to do is give everyone out there the tools and the information that they need to make the right decision, again, based off of what's happening in your business, not based off of what's happening on someone's scorecard or the way that Microsoft has structured a particular agreement versus another.
Ryan, there was a question. There's a few in the chat pod. One from previous, a few minutes ago from Sharon about if you're already on an Azure platform, does it make sense to transition to CSP? I don't like yes/no answers. So I would say the best way to say this is it depends. If you're already on Azure, it depends on how you're procuring that license now. If it's under an EA is a forecast monetary commitment. So I'm going to spend XYZ over the next year. If you don't use that forecast, you lose it. Under MPSA, they have an option where you start at a minimum transaction of 0. And then every 3 months, it transacts in arrears for your actual usage. That could be beneficial both from a financial and then also you're paying for what you consume. So that's a positive. Under the CSP model, it's a monthly. So instead of a quarterly, it starts at $0 transaction and then we'll bill monthly according to what you actually use. So I would say if you're already on an Azure platform, it really depends. We could look at it from a pure financial perspective of how you're buying versus different vehicles and what that financially would look like. It could be that you're interested in having managed service on top of that Azure, at which point it doesn't matter which vehicle you're on, because we can apply that cloud support on top of it. So if it's in an EA and you want managed service on top of the Azure environment, we can tie that in. So I would say it's very customer specific, and it takes a full conversation to understand how you buy and if there's different options available to you and what are the pros and cons for each one of them. So it's not a no, it's not a yes, it's a depends.
So another question that we had here was, how will SA benefits be affected by these changes? Specifically, looks like training vouchers. And that is a good question. So those SA benefits are enterprise agreement specific in terms of training vouchers and planning service days, the deployment planning service days. So that would be one thing to take into consideration, certainly, when evaluating the agreement. I would say that right off of the out of the gate, again, depending on what those numbers are, and one other key portion there is, have you in the past consumed those services and actually utilize your DPS days and your training vouchers? And Charlie said something earlier about, happy customers are the ones that are actually using the technology. And I would say those that are consuming their SA benefits, which is something we certainly put an emphasis on here at SoftwareONE, is definitely another key factor to keep into consideration.
And Ryan, there's a question on, for those that were on Select Plus and the space between $250 and $499, how would you advise to proceed?
So Select Plus obviously going away, being replaced by MPSA. So I would say the quicker you can start to consume and make purchases on the MPSA, the better. The biggest reason being, if you have a Select Plus now, you can transfer the pool level. So let's say, for example, you're at a level B or C or D. You could open an MPSA, tie that to your existing Select Plus, and continue to purchase at that same discount level. However, the points that you have on the Select Plus do not roll over. So every purchase that you're making on the Select Plus right now is an investment from a points perspective and something that will be of no use to you come July 1st of this year. So if you're on Select Plus now, I would get with a SoftwareONE representative as quickly as you can to look at the strategy and how to get yourself moved over to an MPSA as quickly as possible. Charlie, this is one that might be a question for you.
Sure.
Says CSP comes with managed support, and managed support can be added to Microsoft services. What is the SoftwareONE incentive to manage? I imagine some customers are needier than others, was the comment that was listed there.
Well, yeah. I think it scales according to what our customers need. I would say part of it, you have to look at the landscape of where Microsoft, kind of the history of Microsoft as a whole. They started as a software company and they made boxes and they pushed boxes out to the big box stores like Best Buy and Circuit City, and then realized, all right, that's a lot of money to make boxes. So let's create volume license. Volume license being digital download. They introduced the reseller communities, 20 years ago or so. Then they realized as they're adopting technology and creating new product that it causes a lot of questions. So Microsoft support, and Microsoft support has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. Microsoft is scaling back their support. It'll always be there, but they realize that such a huge transformational shift from on-premise into cloud obviously will create massive amounts of I don't know what to do next. So that was one of the catalysts for introducing the CSP. Is that first off, we talk to our customers every day. So the fact that a customer calls into Microsoft, that Microsoft support person, they don't know you. They don't know your history. They don't know how you've transacted, what you've done in the past. The CSP program being streamlined, we don't subcontract out our services. This is SoftwareONE 100% through and through, and we have 100% visibility into everything that you've done with SoftwareONE. So we already have, prior to us even picking up the phone, we understand the history. So from a streamlined end-to-end solution, it benefits the customer because all the information is in one part of it. We have all the information 100% on your transaction history, how you've purchased, what contract, what level. We have, some of the EAs, we have access into it so we can see your SA benefits, XYZ. So that's one area where, you could have customers that call once a month or once a day. It's meant to scale. So it's, what support do you actually need, and we can fulfill that. All right, any additional questions?
I don't see any other questions in the chat box. So, or any other hands raised. We'll give it a couple seconds here, and if we don't see anything else, thank you for joining us, and please feel free to follow up with your SoftwareONE representative if you have any additional questions on what you've learned today. And it looks like the gift card winner will be announced in a follow-up email. So with that, if no other questions, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a nice day.